So the topic is, according to the flyer, right? Can you observe Shabbos without celebrating it? Can you celebrate Shabbos without observing it? The balance between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. So there's a very famous premise when it comes to teaching. Certainly when you're teaching kids, right? But even when you're teaching adults, the wrong people always hear the wrong message in any given statement, right? You're talking to kids and you want to impress upon them that it's important. It's, you got to be studious and it's important to get good grades. But, you have to help, and you have to help out in school projects. And if your parents need help at home, you got to help. And if there's other kids that need stuff done, you got to volunteer. You can't just stick your head in the books 24/7. You've got to be, involved in what's going on. Who's the kid that hears that? The ADD kid who can't sit still anyways and is barely passing. You're right, man. I got to be involved. I got to help out. No, you're the one that needs to hear the second part of the speech, which is it's important to be studious and grades are important and you can't go running around doing things for everybody else if you're going to be failing yourself. Who hears that? The very shy, introverted kid who doesn't like people anyway said, I really got to study more, and I really got to worry about myself more, and I really got to pay attention to my grades. So the wrong person always hears the wrong speech. It's the noisy, outgoing kid who's failing who needs to hear you got to be studious, that's important, and the shy introvert who has to hear, no, you got to get out and meet people, and you got to go build relationships. So the wrong person always hears the wrong speech, okay? And that's my fear tonight, because there's two different speeches, and I don't really know you all well, and certainly all the people that are watching this video, God knows who they are. I mean, God knows who they are, right? And I would like to point out, whoever you are, God knows who you are, right? But we're gonna, right? But so here's there's two very different struggles when it comes to Torah and mitzvot in general. And we're going to focus on Shabbos because Shabbos is a great example of it. Can you observe Shabbos but not celebrate it? You make your kiddush, you make your emotzi, you don't do anything wrong, but it's not Shabbos day. The whole spirit of the law is lost. Absolutely yes. Absolutely. If it's Pesach night and you take a piece of matzah and you eat it, you did a mitzvah of eating matzah. Doesn't even matter that you don't even know it's matzah. Doesn't matter that you don't even know what it is. Doesn't matter that you picked it up by you ate matzah on Pesach. You ate matzah on Pesach. You got a mitzvah. Not the greatest mitzvah, not the most amazing mitzvah. Every mitzvah creates an angel, and that angel's be slightly crippled and won't be the most healthy-looking angel on the planet. You ate matzah. You ate matzah. You did a mitzvah. You did a mitzvah. You did it right. You did it right. You went through from sundown to sundown, and you didn't turn on any lights, and you didn't write any words, and you didn't do any business transactions, and you took out a cup of wine, and you mumbled your kiddush, and you took out some challah, and you made a motzi, and you had a piece of fish, and then you said birchat hamazon, and then you read till the next day, and you just stayed in your bed. Like, you didn't do anything wrong. You just stuck at home, and you just made sure not to move too much because, you moved the wrong way. God knows what transgression you'll do. So you played it safe, and you watch your watch, and boom, Shabbat is over. I did it. I made it through Shabbat. I didn't transgress any sins. I observed Shabbat. I made my kiddush. And I had a meal, which was a little bit of tuna fish sitting in my pajamas, but that's okay. And I didn't sing songs. I didn't talk to anybody because I hate people, and I hate God, and then I hate myself, and I'm really a mess. But you know what? When I get to heaven, and they're going to build that up against, you're going to hell. I said, not for Shabbos, because I did it. And God said, yeah, I guess so. You got me on that one. I beat God on the technicality, and you beat the rap. Absolutely, you did it. Is that what God wants? No. There's a famous concept, the Ramban, Nachmanides, not to be confused with a Rambam, who is Maimonides. Ramban, Rabbeinu Moshe ben Nachman, right? The Ramban. The Ramban has a famous concept. Well, he has two famous concepts. One is more famous than the other. I have my own sarcastic and just, reason why one's more famous than the other. But since we're recording, we're going to leave that out, right? But he has two famous concepts. The very famous concept is a concept called Naval B'Rshut HaTorah. Naval means a despicable person, a menuvel, a scumbag, right? A scummy, despicable person who lives within the technicalities of the Torah. B'Rshut, they're in the domain of they're not doing anything technically wrong. He says it on the verse, Kadoshim Tiyu. There's a commandment which says you should be holy. That's a pretty nebulous command, right? Most commands are pretty specific and pretty detailed. But there's a nebulous command that says you should be holy. What does it mean you should be holy? Like, what does it mean you should be holy? What am I supposed to do, right? Like just get on a mountaintop and like dance, put on like, white robes and roll my eyes. Like, what am I supposed to do, right? What do you mean to be holy? So there are many different interpretations. The Ramban says, what it's referring to is referring to this concept of Naval B'Rshut HaTorah, which means on a technicality, you could wake up in the morning. You could spend your whole day just eating steaks and drinking beer and accomplishing nothing positive with your life, but you're not transgressing anything. The meat is kosher, the beer is kosher, you put on tefillin in the morning, you're wearing tzitzit, you made a before blessing, you made an after blessing, you didn't do anything wrong. You go to sleep at night and said, did you do anything wrong today? I didn't do anything wrong. The food I ate was kosher, I made the brachot properly, I put on my tefillin, I was wearing tzitzis while sitting there in my underwear, guzzling beer and drinking steak all day, right? I didn't do anything wrong. Did you accomplish anything? No. Did you make the world a better place? No. Did you sanctify the world? No. Did you increase goodness and beauty in this world? No. But I didn't do anything wrong. He's right. What kind of person is he? He's a novel. He's a despicable, materialistic scumbag. But he's B'Rshut within the domains of the Torah. He has stuck within the parameters of the Torah. He didn't do anything wrong. What did I do wrong? Is God mad at me? Why should he be mad at me, God? I didn't do anything wrong. True. You didn't do anything wrong, but you didn't accomplish anything. Says who says I have to accomplish anything? Oh, Kedoshim Tiyu, says Nachmanides, that's the command of Kedoshim. You're supposed to be a holy person. You're supposed to sanctify the world by getting out there and accomplishing things and increasing kindness and beauty and goodness and holiness in so many different ways and so many different things you can do. The goal is not to get through life, I didn't do anything wrong, right? That's not, it'd be nice if you could die and say with a clear conscience, I never did anything wrong. That's good, but you've missed the whole concept of Kadoshim Tiyu. And says Nachmanides, that's why God commanded that. Because God can't command every minute, every second of the day. What's he supposed to say? He can't list every single solitary possible interaction you could have which would make the world a better place. So what should he write? Say please and thank you, hold the door open for people, right? Say a nice word to someone who looks a little sad on the bus, right? There's mitzvah you can do, lend people money, there's things you can do, but the world is full of, there's thousands of opportunities to add sanctity to the world and to accomplish things depending on who and what you are and what your talents are, things you can volunteer for, organizations you can help out depending on your various talents and skills. So God couldn't list every single solitary thing. He gave a general concept. Look at who you are and where you are and what your life is and sanctify your life by doing positive, beautiful, wonderful things depending on the year you're living in, the community you're living in, the society you're living in, the talents that you have, and who and what you are, somewhere or other. If you look around, you can make the world a better place. So says Ramban, that's the idea of Kadoshim Tiyu, because dry letter of the law, yeah, you can stick within the dry letter of the law and be a pretty non-holy person. But you didn't do anything wrong. He says the same concept, which is less well-known. Same idea. He says that's referring to really the mitzvot between man and God, making the world a more holy place. And then he says when it comes to between man and man, there's an overall same idea, there's a general sweeping statement of Asisa Hayashar Vatov. You have to do what is Yashar, straight, and Tov, and good. Says Nachmanides, that's parallel to Kedoshim to you. Just like God could not legislate every area of sanctity, and you just got to use your common sense and your understanding of what the Torah wants and the reality of who and what you are to bring sanctity into the world. God could not legislate every single solitary human interaction. And you could be similarly in between man and man. You could be letter of the law. I don't know if there's any lawyers present, but, right? Letter of the law, fine print, you win, it is legal, but you're just a scummy, rotten guy. That's disgusting way to deal. But it was a fine print, it was a technicality, there's 27 pages, da-da-da-da-da. He should have read it, he said he read it, he signed on the bottom line, da-da-da-da-da, and I win. Is that Yashar? Was that a straight way to deal with people? Is it legal? Yeah, legal. Was that Tov? Was that good? Is that making a better society? Right? It was legal. True. Was there anything technically wrong? No. You worded it such in such a way. It's the Torah Beit has a legal system, and you made the deal, and you know what? You didn't do anything wrong. But was it Yashar? Was that straight? Is that a straight way to handle your business dealings? Is that a straight way to deal with people? It's not straight. It's not good. But it was technically okay. Yeah. And therefore, just like you could be a very non-holy person, but I didn't do anything wrong, you could be a very non-straight, not nice person, but you didn't do anything wrong. And we all know business people like that, or they're right, but they're not a nice guy to deal with, and it's just not straight, and it's not menschlich, and it's not a good way to do things. But you go to court, you're going to lose. So just forget it. It's nothing you're going to do about it, right? Go to Bais, go to the Jewish court. It's a legal system. You work the system, and that's the way it is. The legal system is a legal system, and any legal system, even God's legal system, right? If you figure out the details just enough and you work it really well and you're really smart, you can stay technically within the system, but be a very materialistic, not holy, not straight, not nice, not good person, but you didn't do anything wrong. And for generations, that's been a struggle. You read through the prophets. That's the struggle they talk about. The Jewish people, they're bringing sacrifices and they're following the letter of the law, but they're just not nice people. They're not holy people, right? All sorts of comments, God says, well, I don't want all your sacrifices. Thank you very much for bringing all these sacrifices to the temple. But you're rotten, not nice, scummy, materialistic people, right? Thank you very much. You're fulfilling the letter of the law called mitzvot anashim malu mada. You're doing the mitzvot by rote. And that was always a struggle within the Jewish people. And many movements came along to solve that struggle. Chassidus was one of them. Add spirit, add joy, add a sense of sanctity, not being so legalistic and so, and that's okay. Yeah, shkoyach, but, come on, where's your soul, man? Where's your passion? What's going on? All right, the Musar movement, same idea. You got to have ethics. You got to be moral. You got to work on your own personal growth, your personal stuff. Yeah, no, technicalities, you got it, shkoyach. So there were many movements throughout history, and the prophets railed against this idea of doing things by rote, right? It's not what God wants, right? God wants you to be holy. God wants you to be straight. God wants you to be good. But we can't legislate that in all the details. You can't. You ate the matzah, you ate the matzah. It's a little lot. You ate the matzah, you ate the matzah. Can't say you observed Shabbat. It was a crummy Shabbat. It was a lousy Shabbat. You missed the point. You missed the spirit. You didn't account. All the stuff we spoke about in the last two classes, Zippo 0. They didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, he didn't do anything. Didn't do anything wrong. Didn't do anything wrong, and he didn't do anything wrong. Did he fulfill being a holy person through the Shabbat? No. Did he fulfill being a good person? No. Was that a stray? No. But he didn't do anything wrong. He observed Shabbat. But to solve the problem of following the letter of the law and being a rotten, horrible person, right, of working the system and not growing, you can't solve it by changing the system. Can you celebrate Shabbos but not observe it? Absolutely not. Not. You can make up your own holiday and call it Shabbos, but it's not Shabbos. I love baseball. Me and my friends, we love baseball. But, we're not so good at it. So, we have our own baseball league. And it's 6 strikes and you're out. Right? And there's only 2 bases, so you don't have to run so much. We made it a little shorter. Is that baseball? It's not baseball. You can call it baseball from here till doomsday. It ain't baseball. You're having a good time, and we're exercising, and maybe the spirit of playing baseball you're accomplishing, and the people that created baseball are probably, that's an interesting thing. But don't call it baseball. Don't call it baseball. It's not baseball. It's your own creation, which accomplishes a lot of wonderful things. I'm not saying you shouldn't play it, and you shouldn't do it. Better than sitting on, in a chair watching TV all day. It's good exercise, 100%. It's a lot of wonderful, good things about it. But it's not baseball. Baseball is baseball. You can't play baseball. You can't do baseball the way it's supposed to be done. I don't know, so don't play baseball, right? Make up your own game. Don't call it baseball. Shabbos is Shabbos is Shabbos. God created Shabbos. It's his bat, it's his ball, it's his rules. You can make up your own holiday that you celebrate from Friday night to Saturday night and do a lot of stuff, which is fun and good and interesting, and it's beautiful and it's meaningful, and you bond with your family, and you feel great about it, and you end so relaxed, and you're a better person. There's a lot of things you can do to relax and make yourself a better person and spend family time. You can do it on Wednesday. You can go to the Grand Canyon. You can go hiking. A lot of wonderful things that you can do to accomplish some of the things that Shabbat does. And you can do all the things that you're supposed to do, but Wednesdays just works better for you. And that's nice. But it ain't Shabbos. Especially Shabbos. Think of it. You know how ludicrous this is when people do that? They make no sense at all. What's the whole point of Shabbos? To remember that God created the world. Well, you can't celebrate God's creation of the world by doing stuff that God said you shouldn't do. If you're celebrating the fact that God created the world, then you got to do it God's way. God created the world, but I really don't care because I think I'm smarter than God and I'm going to make Shabbat my way. Well, God says, hey, wait a minute. You're celebrating the fact that I created the world and you're doing it your way? That's ridiculous. If you created the world, then you can celebrate it any way you want. I created the world, and you're going to do it my way. Don't call it Shabbos. Absolutely impossible. You can't do it. You got to do it his way. And that's the only thing you can hand down to the next generation. Otherwise, it's not Shabbos, it's your own thing. I remember I once did a Shabbaton, one of the many programs I did where I was not asked back again, and a modern Orthodox synagogue in North America. There's a little tricky balance of the modern and the Orthodox, right? But it was a modern Orthodox synagogue in North America. I don't remember what the topic was, right? And then afterwards, I spoke Shabbos morning, right, like the sermon, right, Shabbos morning, and then there was like a big community kiddush, right, for the congregation. I was answering, talking to people, and there were people, hanging around, right, and I was just sitting there, like, eating my food. There was a table full of people, and people are asking questions, I'm the scholar in residence, people asking questions. So one guy says, right, I ask you a question. Yeah, sure, go ahead. Yeah, we're sitting around, sure, asking questions. Said, yeah, I have a problem with my kid. You're an educator? Yeah, sure, yeah, kids, what's the problem with your kid? Well, your kid was just bar mitzvahed, right? You all have heard my bar mitzvah has destroyed Judaism in North America. It was a scam perpetrated by would-be rabbis who needed to earn a living, so they created bar mitzvah so they could earn a living and destroy Judaism, right? There's no such thing as being bar mitzvah, right? If you turn 13, you are bar mitzvah. You don't have to be bar mitzvah, right? But, it's good. Listen, as long as you hire a Jewish kid, at least, it's nice that people earn a living. It's important. It's important to, support florists and party planners and God knows what, right? So that's a mitzvah. So that was just a total aside. We apologize, right? So he said, my son was just bar mitzvahed, right? And you want to hear a chutzpah? I said, it's a chutzpah. Well, I told him, so I said, now that you're bar mitzvah, right, you should really wear a kippah, because, if you're bar mitzvah, you should wear a kippah. So he says, well, I don't want to wear a kippah. He said, what do you mean you don't want to wear a kippah? You're bar mitzvah, you have to wear a kippah. So he turned to me and he said, Dad, he said, do we keep kosher in the house? He goes, yes, we do. He says, Dad, do we keep kosher out of the house? I goes, no, we don't. He says, why don't we keep kosher out of the house? He said, well, because I just don't want to. That's not what I do. He said, well, you know what? Kippah is not something that I do. He said, what do you think of that? I said, I think the kid's really smart and you're a hypocrite. You have no hope for the kid unless you either get with the program or forget it, right? So it seems that not only was it an impolite answer, it was, of course, thank God I didn't know exactly who he was, but I probably would have said it anyways. Because, what do I care? It's not my synagogue, right? But that's the truth, right? You can't make it up on your own. If you can make it up on your own, your kid can make it up on his own. Right? But if there's a structure, there's a structure. If there's no structure, if you do what works for you because this is what works for me, so then you can't send the kids out, here's what works for me. Marrying a non-Jew works for me, and not keeping kosher works for me, it works for you. We all decide. Everyone makes up their own game. You can't observe Shabbos. You can't celebrate Shabbos if you don't observe it. I want to focus on that point a little bit. So see, now we have two speeches. We have you gotta get off of the idea that just because you are wacko, super meticulous in the details of Shabbat, but you have no life and spirit to your holiday, you're killing yourself and killing your kids. And then the opposite. It's very beautiful that you're doing things which are very meaningful and social and environmentally, politically correct, blah, 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 blah. But you're making it up as you go along, and it ain't Shabbos. And if you want your kids to do things that are Jewish, there has to be some kind of criterion of what makes it Jewish. And if it's whatever strikes you at the moment, don't be upset when your kids decide to do whatever the heck they want. So we have two groups of people that are listening to this speech. One needs to stop thinking that as long as they do the letter of the law, I'm safe. You need spirit, man. You need energy. You need meaning. And one needs to hear meaning, schmeaning, but the rule is the rule, right? And 1 and 1 is 2, and it ain't 3, and it ain't whatever you want it to be. So I don't know who all you are, but I'm just hoping everybody's going to hear the right speech. Now you understand my beginning of everybody got to hear the right speech. That's trying everybody got to hear the right speech. I want to focus on the latter because that's a little harder, right? Meaning, the concept of, in today's day and age, right, the truth is everybody, even your born and bred, FFBs, right? From birth people, right? Struggle with the idea that, we want to be our own people, and the letter of the law can be quite restricting, and there's so many different ways and different ideas, so many beautiful concepts, and many times the letter of the law does seem to choke us to death. It does seem to choke us to death, right? What is it? Rabbi Skobek has a share called his Religion Killing Judaism or something, right? I don't know what it's, but it's a great title. So that, I don't know what he means by that, but that could be, the letter of the law can choke you. So what is this with our obsession of letter of the law, and especially Shabbat? Because Shabbat is so clearly meaningful. Mainly you take a law, okay, God said, we don't understand it, but whatever God said jump, he said you jump, okay, and we agree we don't necessarily know what it means, but Kabbalistically, blah, 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 and we buy it. But Shabbat clearly has meaning. It's not just some, ununderstandable, Kabbalistic, just do it, and when you're dead, you'll find out the point. It's obvious what the point is. It's a beautiful day, and it's family, and it's wet. It's the most healthy thing on the planet. I mean, it's the easiest thing. People become religious. The first thing everyone tells me, I don't know, but they tell me, you spent the Shabbat meal, it was so beautiful, family, never saw anything like it, turn off your phones. It's obvious the point and meaning and beauty of Shabbat, and yet the details are a killer, just a killer, right? Right? And it just choke the lifeblood out of all this meaning. You chop it this way, you chop it that way, right? But I remember when many years ago, when I was working at HaTorah, I had the schus of being when Rabbi Yitzchak started HaTorah, I was God arranged it such that I was his next-door neighbor. So when he started HaTorah, him and 5 students, he asked me to come along and work with him. So it's me, him, 5 students in an unheated apartment in Yerushalayim, in the old city. And I remember the first maybe couple of months, there was a kid that came, and he was like moving along, becoming religious, da-da-da-da-da, right? And he said, Rabbi Feigenbaum, can I ask you a question? I'll never forget it. I remember where it took place. Right, in the old city. He says, can I ask you a question? I said, yes. But I don't want a Rabbi Feigenbaum. I want your own personal opinion. I don't want your official Rabbi Feigenbaum answer. I want you to answer me as like a person, not as a professional rabbi. I said, okay, I hear you. He said, so it's Shabbat. So we just learned the law of the Shabbat. I said, right, it's a class of law of Shabbat. He said, so do you really believe that, see, when I'm sitting there in the washroom on Shabbat, you think God is really worried whether I tear that toilet paper or not? Like the good Lord, who has a whole universe and world to worry about, angels and Messiah, and he's worrying about whether little old me is going to tear that piece of toilet. Like, you think that really is going to change the cosmos? What do you really think, Rabbi Feigenbaum? All right? And you put it that way, it sounds pretty silly. The answer is, of course, yes, it'll make a major difference to the world. But the details can kill you, for God's sakes. Like, nothing else to worry about except, I tear my toilet paper, do I have tissues for Shabbat? And make sure when you go to the store, you try them, because if they're connected a little bit at the end and it tears, you're going to burn in hell. Like, for God's sakes, this is recognizing creation, spending time with family, rebirth, who am I, what I am, I'm not what I am, I'm not what I do, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and you're sitting there making sure that the tissues are not connected by a little piece of thing, because otherwise you're going to burn in hell. Like, it just doesn't, these details can kill you, right? So that's what I want to focus on a little bit. I want you to hear it Peladikavort. There's 2 concepts that you need to understand. If you've come to my shiurim here in Shari Tefillah during davening, then you probably heard them before. And if they do sound familiar because you've heard them before, that means that it's maybe time that you should just actually probably stay inside and daven and stop walking out and listening to me, okay? Right? That's, you got to graduate out of that, folks, okay? So number 1 is a vort from Rabbi Zev Leff. It's not mine. But it's Peladik, and I've used it all the time. A little background material. We will assume ignorance. I apologize if it's a little too simplistic, right? The Midrash tells us that when the good Lord came to give the Torah to the Jewish people, so he went to the nations of the world and offered them the Torah first. And instead he went to Esau, Yaakov's evil twin brother. He went to the children of Esau, and he said, would you like the Torah? And they said, well, what's it saying in your Torah? God said, well, it says you're not allowed to murder, lo sirtzach. And they said, oh, we can't do that. God said, well, what's the matter with not murdering? He said, no, that's a problem for us, because the blessing that we got, right, when Jacob and Esau, right, got the blessing from their father Isaac, from Yitzchak, right, the blessing that Esau got, the blessing said, al charbecha tichya, you will live by the sword. So that's the blessing we got from our grandfather Isaac, right? Our father Esau got this blessing. You live by the sword. So we live by the sword. That's who and what we are. We cannot accept your Torah because it says in there, don't murder, and that's what we do. So God said, okay. And he went to Ishmael, to the children of Ishmael. And he said, Yishmael, would you like the Torah? And Ishmael said, well, what's written in the Torah? And God said, it says, you're not allowed to steal. Lo signo. Right? So he said, oh, we can't do that one. He said, what's the matter with that one? He says, well, if you remember our mother, our great-grandmother, Hagar, right, when she ran away, she was by the well, and the angel said, go back, you're going to have a child, right? His name is going to be Ishmael. And when the angel described to our matriarch, Hagar, right, this child that she's going to have, it said, Yadoba kol v'yad kol bo. His hand will be in everybody else's, right? And everybody else's hand will be in him. Which means we steal from others and others steal from us. That's what we do. We just steal. That's what the angel said. Yadoba kol. His hand will be in everybody else's pocket. And so we have to steal. That's who and what we are. Sorry, we can't do it. So God said, okay. So he went to the Jewish people, said, would you like the Torah? And the Jews said, Nasiv and Ishma. We will accept it and we will do. We'll take the Torah. After Rabbi left, maybe he was quoting somebody else. I don't know. I don't remember. He said, this story, there's a problem here. Because, see, the Talmud discusses this story and says, so you mean Esau has to murder people? That's what Isaac's blessing was? to Esav, al Chaber Chaticha, you live by the sword, that's their job, to go around murdering people? That doesn't make any sense. And Talmud says, of course, that's not what he meant at all. What he meant was Esav will have talent to be able to be warrior-like people. They will have good talents at waging wars and fighting battles and using the sword. They will be talented in that area. Doesn't mean they should use it to kill innocent people. There's wicked people that need to be killed. We need armies. We need policemen. And Esav was given the talent that you will have the talent to use your sword well. But of course, the idea is that they should use it not to murder innocent people, right? Not to kill innocent people, but to use it to police the world and keep the world a safe place. So as says Rabbi Leff, so if that's what the Talmud says, why didn't God just tell them that? Here's what should have happened. You want the Torah? What does it say? It says you're not allowed to murder. Oh, sorry, God, we can't do that because the blessing we got was al Chaber Chaticha, we have to live by the sword. That means we're murderers. God should have said, no, you don't understand the verse. You think that's what Isaac meant? That you guys should be murderers? That's not what he meant. It meant that you are talented in the area of warfare, so you should protect from evil people. So yes, you will kill evil people, but you can still fulfill the commandment of Lo Tirtzach, thou shalt not murder. Why did he just explain it to them, and then they could have accepted the Torah? Same thing with Ishmael. The Talmud says, what do you mean the angel told Hagar that Ishmael are going to be thieves? You know, no one's born with the job of being a thief. We have free will, right? So he says, no, the Talmud says... They misunderstood. What the angel meant was, is Yado Bakol v'Yad Kol Bo. He will have stuff that everybody else needs, that nobody else has, so they will have to get stuff from him, but he will be missing essentials that he doesn't have, that he will have to get from somebody else. So they'll be trading, not stealing from each other, but they'll trade, because he will have stuff that other people need, that only he has, is oil, right? But he'll be missing important things that he has to get from somebody else, and that's what it meant, that they'll trade, not steal. So why didn't God just tell them that? Oh, Ishmael, don't worry about that. When the angel said, Yado Bakol v'Yad Kol Bo, it doesn't mean you're going to be stealing from people. It means you're going to be trading with people. So you can. Why didn't God just explain to them their mistake, and they could have taken the Torah? Hear the problem? You got it? Says Rabbi Leff. He gives a great example. He said, if I go over to you and say, okay, hello, yo, can somebody here, can you do me a favor? Can you do me a favor? So you read, yeah, I'll do you a favor. Good, I need to borrow $100,000. Oh, I don't have $100,000. I asked if you do me a favor. You said yes. Well, I didn't know it was to lend you $100,000. I don't have $100,000. Hey, guy, can you let me do me a favor? Do me a favor. Yeah, I'll do you a favor. What do you want? I said, I need a ride to the airport. I don't drive. When someone says, can you do me a favor? First you say what it is. What's the favor? If it's a ride to the airport, I can help you. If it's to borrow $100,000, I can't. If it's about $20, I could. You don't say, yes, I'll do a favor, because you don't know what it is. So you say, oh, sure, what's the favor? And if it's doable, it's doable. When someone says, if I would say, I want you everybody, this is the last of this 3-part series, and when you walk out the door, you'll see a table, there's a beautifully wrapped box. It's a gift for everybody who participated in all 3 classes. Would anybody say, Ray Feigenbaum, what's in the box? It's a gift. You take it. You can't use it. You re-gift it. Right? You don't want to ask. It's a gift. You take it. When God went to Ishmael and to Esav, and he said, do you want to accept the Torah? And they responded, what does it say? God realized, oh, you guys think that I'm asking you to do me a favor. So you're saying, well, we'll do the favor if we can. What does it say? Once they had that attitude, he said, forget it. I'm not asking you to do me a favor. I'm offering you a gift, you idiots. When God went to the Jewish people and God said, would you like the Torah? The Jewish people realized, I don't know what the heck it is, but it's clearly a great gift. And if God's given me a gift, I'll take it. See, that Torah's a gift. We're not doing God a favor by following the rules. The rules are a gift to give structure and meaning, to force us to focus on the real value. And therefore we have to look into all the rules and see, though they're onerous sometimes, there got to be a point. And if I don't understand the point, then the point is that I believe God's smarter than me, and I'm not smarter than God, and I'm going to do it even if it looks stupid to me. Because either I'm stupid or God's stupid, so the odds are higher that it's me that's stupid, not God that's stupid. Oh, it is hard. It's absolutely hard. Okay? But listen to a great mashal. So you got this space alien, see, and he lands his spacecraft, and he gets out, and he's walking around, and he sees there's this big building, right? And he looks around at the building, and like the window open, he like puts his ear to see like what's going on, and he hears horrible noises. People are grunting, and they're moaning, and it's terrible. He said, "Oh, this must be like a torture chamber. There's like prisoners in here or something." So he walks around, and the door's open. So he opens the door very carefully, and he looks in. And he sees the craziest thing. There's a guy there, and he's riding a bicycle, and he's huffing and he's puffing. He can't breathe. And the bicycle's not going anywhere. And he goes, "Bud, your bicycle, you know, it ain't going anywhere." I know. And he's just going and going. Oh, my gosh. And there's another guy next to him, and he's stepping, and he can't breathe, and he looks like he's going to die, and he said, you're in the same step that you were when you started. Like, this is a crazy place. This must be like some kind of torture punishment. And then he hears noises from another room, and there's somebody barking. "1, 2, 3, don't talk to me, there's 4. And he's, "Oh my gosh, that's terrifying." And he opens the door, and he looks in, and there's this big, nasty, huge guy in the front. And all those prisoners are lined up, and they're doing jumping jacks. And there's some guy in the corner, and he's having a real hard time. He goes, 2, 3, I can't. The guy says, "Oh, you're going to do it at 5, 4. And he says, "I got to help the guy." And he runs over to him and says, "Psst, listen, buddy, I can get you out of here. I got a spacecraft right out the door. Just quick, jump, come on, we'll jump out the window, and I'll take you in my spacecraft, and I'll get you out of here." And he goes, "Get me out of here. I pay $200 a month to do this." "You pay money to do this?" "Yeah." "Because it's a gym. Do you know there are people that will pay somebody to come to their house?" Get this. It's the funniest thing in the world. They'll pay somebody to come to their house. So they'll pay them, I have no idea, but let's say they pay them, I don't know, $200 an hour. So they'll tell them to come to their house, and the guy says, "Okay, I want you to do 10 push-ups." And you start doing the push-ups, and after 5 you say, I can't do anymore." He says, "Yeah, shut up and you do 10 push-ups." You know what you should say to the guy? "I'm paying you $200 an hour, you tell me to do 6, okay?" Why don't you tell the guy that? You don't. You say, "Okay, what an idiot. I'm paying you, and I'm telling you I can only do 6. And you're telling me I don't care how much you're paying me, you're doing 10, and you like an idiot, you listen to him. It's your money. Tell him to tell you to do 6. What are you listening to him for? You're the boss." Tiferes is because he's a physical trainer. And you don't know your body well enough. You know that you're flabby around here, and then you have a problem with your back, right? But you don't know how to get your back better, right? And he says for some unknown reason, because he went to school for a long time, and he gave you a very thorough checkup before he started. And he said, "I know your back bothers you, but I don't know anything about your body, so I'm just making this up, right? I know your back, but you know how you're going to fix your back? You're going to fix your back by doing, push-ups, right? And that's going to fix your back. And I'm telling you, you can do 10. You can't do 11, but you can do more than 9. You can do 10. Why do you believe him? Because he studied for years, and he has years of experience, and he comes highly recommended, right? He's done wonders for everybody else, and he gave you a thorough checkup, and he knows your body better than you. What do you know about your body? I don't know anything about my body, right? Just like I have a body. I don't know how it works, right? And you would have said, well, I thought to help my back, I thought I would no, because it's connected to the moo-poo-poo, that's connected to there, that muscle has that, and therefore you do that, and then so it's going to hurt a little more first, but then at the end you see, watch a month from now, it's going to be amazing. I don't understand that. That's okay, you don't have to understand it. I'm a physical trainer. That's why I charge $200 an hour, and that's why you pay me. You didn't hire this other guy who only charges $100 an hour, because I'm better than him, and that's why I charge so much, and you listen to him, because he's your physical trainer. God's our physical trainer. He created us. He knows our souls better than we do. He knows what we need to push our spiritual muscles to develop them in the best way possible. So if he says, here's the concept of Shabbat, that's really great, God. I'd like to be able to do that. I would like to be able to focus on who I am and not what I do. I would like to understand the concept of rebirth, and I would like to connect to my family, and I would like to sanctify the material world. And I think these are great values to put into my workplace during the week, and into my family, and to my kids. I'd like to refocus my value system. That's a great idea, right? And it's a little expensive, this physical trainer, right? It's 613 mitzvot. You can find people who will claim to be the same kind of physical trainers and will tell you could do less. In fact, you'll even find spiritual physical trainers who say, you tell me what you would like me to tell you, and I will tell you that, and that sounds good to me, right? And that's how they lead their congregations. They find out what everybody wants to hear, and then they say it, and that's a good way to earn a living, right? But God's an expensive physical trainer, but he knows you better than anybody else, and he knows the system, and he knows the exercises. He says, you want that goal? This is how you do it. When you go to the bathroom, don't tear the toilet paper. I'm working on like that. I know. When you go to the bathroom on Shabbat, before Shabbat, make sure you buy tissues, make sure you buy the right kind. Shabbos Rugmark, I don't know which ones, my wife has a whole thing on which ones work, which ones don't. It's a whole avodah, right? It's a whole thing. And before Shabbat, you say, I'm buying toilet tissues for Shabbat because these are the only tissues that work, and you put them in your thing, and you take it out, and so when you go to the washroom and you pull it out and it doesn't tear, you say, thank God. Well, don't say thank God, you're in the bathroom, right? And there you go. He's a physical trainer. Want to hear a Peladikavort? There's no English translation for that. Want to hear it's a Peladikavort, right? Awesome, if you were a 15-year-old kid. Listen to Rav Solomon, he should be well. I heard this from him. We refer to the body of laws, the letter of the laws, right? The mitzvot, the commandments, not the spirit of the laws, but the mitzvot, the letter of the laws, as a yoke. Oil. Ayin Vav Lamed. Oil, Malchush, the yoke of heaven. Right? The yoke of heaven. We say Shema. Shema Yisrael. Look at it. Shema. Here always. The old Shema are the letters backwards. Ol, Malchus, Shemayim. The yoke of the kingdom of heaven. That's what we're accepting on when we say the Shema. We accept the yoke of kingdom of heaven. It's a yoke. Yoke has this connotation of this yoke. This burden. When I was in HaTorah, also, another funny story, right? So there was a guy, he was like zooming along, and everything. Says, how's it going, man? He said, well, yeah, I'm really doing it. I feel like I'm doing all these mitzvot, and it's a little hard, I sort of view all these commandments and all these laws, I was a little tricky boy, but it's sort of like my cross I bear through life. I said, that's not a great example. I wouldn't use that as an example. And we don't use that as an example. It's not a cross you bear through life, it's a yoke. Says Rav Solomon, what's a yoke? A yoke is a perfectly balanced wooden instrument that the animal wears in order to allow it to do its job. It has to pull the wagon. That's its job. Nebuchadnezzar, the animal is wearing a yoke. Well, what would you like it to do? So, do the animal a favor and get rid of the yoke. How are you going to tie the strings to the wagon? Around his neck? You're going to pull the wagon? It's going to kill him. You're going to tie it around his stomach? The yoke is perfectly designed so that he can do his job in the best way possible. That's what a yoke accomplishes. That's the mitzvot. The mitzvot, the letter of the laws, are perfectly designed to give us the ability to do our job in the best way possible. And it's the details that allow us to put meaning into what we do. But absolutely correct. If we lose sight of that, and we get so hung up on the details, and we forget to look for the meaning, it is an empty shell. And that's not what we're looking for. Everybody has a challenge. Everybody has a challenge. Whose challenge is harder? We don't compete for whose challenge is harder. Like little kids, we compete. Whose Pesach Seder, ended the latest. Ladies compete. Who stayed up later to cook for Pesach? I was more tired than you on Pesach. I was more tired than you on Pesach. Right? It's not a competition. Right? But everybody has their challenges. Us FFBs that grew up with it, and Shabbos was a no-brainer, right? It took me a very long time till I actually even met someone who didn't keep Shabbos, right? That's the way I was raised. When I was growing up, I didn't know people. I mean, I knew not Jews, right? But I didn't know Jewish people who didn't keep Shabbos. I liked Shabbos, right? It was a no-brainer, obvious Shabbos, right? I never chose to keep Shabbos. That's what you do, right? I mean, I could, I walk into my bedroom and the light is on. I couldn't turn it off. I couldn't turn it off any more than if I was hungry. I could walk into a McDonald's. I look at, I look at a hamburger and a glass of milk and I want to throw up. It's like green eggs and ham. Hamburgers are Coke and milk is tuna fish. Like you just can't. That's not because I'm a religious guy. Just the way I was raised. Right? It's just, hamburgers have Coke. Milk and hamburgers are like nauseous, right? It's nauseous. It's like when I go to the store and you see those shellfish, those lobsters and things crawling around and like, people eat that. I mean, people probably look at Schultz and they say, you eat that, right? I get that, but that's the way I was raised. So Shabbat's a no-brainer. Right? The details of Shabbat are no-brainers. I'm not saying I'm an expert in Hilchot Shabbat, but it's like I don't think twice, I know just how you set it up. It's not a burden. I'm not like this. What you do, like you just boom, you like Shabbos candles and shabrung, and the details are different, and you're all programmed for it, right? But that's hard because it's hard to put meaning into things that you do by rote. You just come home from shul and you make kiddush, you make motzi, you sing your songs, right? And you talk to and it's hard to put meaning into things that you've just grown up with all your life and you don't think twice about. Right? That's a challenge. And to a certain extent, it's almost a harder challenge than your person who did not grow up with Shabbat and is trying to figure it out and is, struggling with what to do next and what to do now and how do you do this and how do you do that, right? And a million things can go wrong, right? I always tell the story. I've told it many times in Shari Tefillah, right? I finally got an inkling of what it must be like for someone who did not grow up religious to all of a sudden. Shabbat's a great example because there's so many myriad of details that you wouldn't have think of in a million years. Like, who would have thought in a million years, like, you're not supposed to do that? Like, what the heck was that, right? So when my grandchildren were visiting once, Pesach probably something from New York. So they have no recycling in New York. So the first time they came, and they were relatively little, so I told them, okay, listen, in Toronto, we have 3 different, garbage cans in the kitchen. There's a blue box, and that's for, bottles and plastic bottles and things. There's a green box, and that's for foodstuffs, and the regular garbage, and there's foam is one thing, and we're trying to give them a whole thing, right? And you got to be careful. And they were laughing. I said, no, listen, man, there's garbage court, and, they check your garbage, and, it's not funny. It's a rule. It's a law. You go to jail. Like, you got to do it right. Fine. So I remember, it was a Shabbat or a holiday, and one of my grandchildren was clearing the table, going into the kitchen, and all of a sudden he burst out into tears. And we said, what's the matter? And he's holding this stuff, and he goes, I don't know what garbage to put this in, and I don't want Zadie to go to jail, right? And he had no idea, what to do. And I said, that's what it must be. If you didn't grow up with Shabbat, and you start keeping the laws, it's like, you cut it this way, you cut it that way, and you can't use your logic because, you have no idea, what could go wrong, right? And it's very complicated and very difficult, and it can drive you nuts. So that's a challenge. And the FFBs have the challenge of putting meaning into things that you do by rote. That's not easy either. And to a certain extent, and I don't know who's listening to all of this, to a certain extent, the rabbis actually say, funny enough, that that's actually a little bit harder. There's a famous chazal. The rabbis say like this. It says, Yitzchak and Rivka, Isaac and Rebekah were davening to have a child, right? They didn't have any children. They would eventually have twins, Yaakov and Esau, but they were barren, didn't have any children, and it says they were both davening, and it says, Vaye'aser lo Hashem v'tar Rivka ishto. God listened to his prayers, and his wife Rivka became pregnant with the famous twins of Jacob and Esau, right? So Rashi on the spot says, V'tahar lo Hashem, God listened to him. It's clear the verse is saying that God listened to him rather than her. And everybody says, why was Isaac's prayers necessarily any better than Rivka's prayers? They're both righteous people. And so Rashi quotes the Chazal that says that Eino Doma, you can't compare. Yitzchak was tzaddik ben tzaddik. Yitzchak was a righteous person, the son of righteous people. He grew up in Abraham and Sarah's home, right? Whereas Rebekah was a tzaddikas. She was righteous, but she was the daughter of evil people, Lavan and Esau and all those bad guys, right? And therefore, Isaac's prayers were accepted. So ask everybody, should it be the opposite? So Isaac grew up religious. Well, yeah, duh. He grew up in the house of Abraham and Sarah. What was he struggling with, man? Obviously, he grew up to be a righteous guy. Rebecca grew up with all this immorality and all this junk and evil Lavan and evil scum, dishonest, bad guy, and Bethuel. She grew up in a horrible place, and she managed to come out righteous. Isn't she greater? Isn't that more amazing? So many different explanations given. The nicest explanation I saw is, yeah, it's quite amazing to grow up in a house like that and turn out religious. You have to break away from your home and blah, 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 and clearly difficult. So, but on the other hand, if your father is Abraham and your mother is Sarah and you're now the next generation, that's not an easy task either. To grow up things where everything is so expected and so assumed and so rote, and to put meaning and make it your own unique personal service of God, when it's something you've just grown up with all of your life without thinking, to a certain extent that might be harder. It might be harder to do that than to all of a sudden, start keeping Shabbat when you never did. That's hard. But to wake up Shabbat morning and say, I got to make this Shabbat meaningful and special rather than just same old, that's also difficult. Everybody has their difficulties, and everybody has their speeches, right? Just to put it to an end, we'll just end with numbers because we do numbers. The numerical value of Shabbat, you would like to, it would be 7 would be cool, but it's not. Okay, Shabbat is 702. Shin is 300. Bais is 2. That's 302. And Tuf is another 400. 702. 7 plus 2 is 9. And as we said 1,000 times, 9 is MS. 9 is truth. 9 is truth because 9 is always 9. 9 is a universal number. 9 times 3 is 27. 2 plus 7 is 9. 9 times 4 is 36. 3 plus 6 is 9. 9 times 9 is 81. 1 plus 8 is 9. 9 times everything is always 9 because truth always boils down to truth. The power of truth of MS is Aleph, Mem, Saf. Aleph is the smallest letter, smallest number we have. Aleph is 1. You just take away 1 from the emes, from truth. What word do you have left? Mace, dead. It's either true or it's not true. Either you do it right or it's not right. What's right is right. Everybody has to build. Everybody has their challenge. Put meaning into your Shabbat, which is rote. Add details to your Shabbat, which is beautiful, but it's not Shabbat, right? And you have to build slow. As we said last week because of somebody's question, it reminded me, famous line from Rabbi Yitzchak Feinstein Zatzal. So Rabbi Yitzchak Feinstein, he said, when it comes to growth, right, and growth in your religion, a convert has to make a 180-degree turnabout instantaneously. A convert cannot convert slowly but surely. They can slowly but surely get into it, but once you convert, you go from 0 to 613 overnight. Right, which is why we push off converts, because you can't go from 0 to 613 overnight. You've got to practice and practice and build and build. But there's no such thing as saying, I'm going to convert, I'm going to start with 20 mitzvot, and no. You go from 0 to 613 overnight. Someone who is born Jewish, you have a Jewish neshama. You got it. You got to build it slowly. We don't expect a Jewish person to go from 0 to 613 overnight. right? A non-Jew doesn't have to convert. If they don't want to, they don't have to. We're not asking them to do us any favors. We don't need it, and they don't necessarily need it. Keep the 7, go to heaven. That's fine. You want to do it, you got to go from 0 to 613. Someone who's been born as part of this nation, which is a light into the world, this Am Skula, God's special treasure, with a soul which has the capacity to connect to God more than someone who does not have such a soul, which is why someone would want to convert, because anybody can convert, right? We're not racist. Anybody who wants to be Jewish can be Jewish. It's just costly, right? You just have to pay the price, right? It costs 613 mitzvot. It's worth the price, but it's expensive. If you can't afford it, then don't worry about it. That's okay, right? But if you're born into it, then you're born into it. Why? Because God said so. Why did God have me born Jewish? I don't know. In 120 years, you'll ask me, you'll find out. Right now, just get with the program, right? But as we grow, we don't grow 0 overnight. God starts you off somewhere for whatever reason he started you off. He started me off in one particular place. He started many of you in different places, depending on the city you're born in and when you were born and the age you were born in. There are people who were born in 1930s in Warsaw. That was at a very different spot than the people that were born, 15 years ago in Mea Sharim. Right? Everybody's born in a certain spot with a certain circumstances and therefore, based on that, they got a certain education in their home and in their communities. And now you're where you are, and somehow God arranged that you have the bad luck of being in this particular class, having to listen to me, right? And that's maybe it's your punishment for bad stuff you did in a previous lifetime, right? But we all grow slowly. That's what Moshe finds. We know no one, whatever you're doing, whether you're putting meaning into your rote or whether you're adding details to the beauty, we take it step by step, we deal with it slowly, and if we do the very best we can, right, then we are told that if all the Jews in the world would keep 1 Shabbat, 2 Shabbat, 1 Shabbat, whatever it is, in different opinions, we would reach the coming of Mashgiach, which is described as Yom Shekulo Shabbat, a day which is total and complete Shabbat, where everything is clear and the entire material world that God gave us will be infused with meaning.